You're hiring your head of people. And in the first video in this series, we talked about understanding the environment that you're recruiting in today. The recent past, the experience, the challenges that the field of HR has been through over the last several years, and the particular toll that's taken on heads of people. In part two, we talked about the mindset, motivation, and drivers of high-performing heads of people today. What are they looking for? What do they expect out of their next role? What are they going to be attracted to? And in this third installment of the series, we're going to talk about designing the interview process, how that might be a little different than when you're hiring other executives, how you can make that process optimized specifically for heads of people. So let's get into that. I think in the interview process itself, you have to really be thoughtful about the design and the structure of the process. The number one thing that you have to optimize for is time with the founder and the CEO. Most heads of people are going to be reporting directly to a founder, CEO, professional CEO, perhaps if it's not a founder, but that relationship, that chemistry, as we talked about in the last series, that values alignment is critical. It's probably one of the most important relationships in your business. This isn't a 30-minute interview. This isn't an hour video or an hour interview. You've got to really make time to get to know each other, ideally in an interview setting and outside of an interview setting, so you can really understand what are the motivators, what are the values, how do you connect or not, how do you roll with each other, what is the engagement like. Experience is going to be essential, but that chemistry and more specifically that values alignment is essential. You're not always going to agree. You're not always going to have the same point of view, and frankly, you shouldn't. But if that values alignment isn't there, it's going to be very difficult for them to successfully lead your organization and build the rapport and the trust and influence that they will need to have with the founder or CEO to successfully help them navigate and drive their business forward. So that is really key. I think also having a cross-section of peers across the executive team is critical as well. They're going to want to know, they're going to work very closely with the CFO. What is that chemistry like? They're going to work really closely with other functional leaders of your business. So really ensuring that you can maximize the peer set exposure in the interview process is also critical. I would also recommend adding leaders of their people team. And look, a head of people is going to want to know what's the state of my team. And the executives they're going to meet with are going to have a perspective on that, as they should, but that may not always be the same perspective that members of the team may have. And so having that more holistic view of the organization, the current state of the HR and people team is really important for that people to self-select. Am I the right person at the right time for the stage of growth and the current conditions of your people team? So that piece is all hugely important. You also want to make sure that you're bringing a level of transparency and openness to that process. Share your engagement surveys. Consider sharing reviews where appropriate. As you get, of course, deeper into the process, if you have to sign an NDA to do so, feel free to sign an NDA. It's not going to be something they're going to have an issue with. But give them a window into the organizational health, right? I think they're going to want to get your perspective on it as whoever the leaders are in the interview team. But they're also going to want to understand, get into some of the data, get into some of the trends. Those markers will really help them, again, make a more informed decision about whether they're the right leader to drive your business forward with the unique conditions of the business today. And that will give them a great insight into that. That piece is really important. From a reporting perspective, again, I think most heads of people in today, especially the high-performing heads of people we're talking about, are accustomed to reporting to the CEO. That's going to be an expectation for many of them. Now, you may have a different organizational structure. Maybe you're reporting to a COO. That I think I've certainly seen, and I think heads of people are open to those conversations. If they're reporting to a general counsel or if they're reporting to a CFO, those are markers to that individual of what their role would be in your organization. And in many cases, it's not going to be strategic. There was a perception that if they're reporting to a CFO, that it's more of a cost control role. If it's a general counsel, it's more of a compliance and risk aversion role. High-performing heads of people will be repelled by that reporting structure. So it's something you should know as you go to market and you're hiring. The other thing that I want to really emphasize that's unique with heads of people is once you've gone through the interview process, and again, what I would also encourage you to do is to ask them who they want to meet. Don't just assume that you're the sole architect of that interview process. I think it's a great, especially once you've had somebody that you've had a couple rounds of conversations with, you're narrowing in on them as the right person for the role from your perspective. Ask them who else they want to meet. Ask them what other information they might want from the company, which could include employee engagement surveys, things like that, to help them make a more informed decision. Really, that's the key. You want them to make a more informed decision. You want them to have all the information they need to feel good about the decision. And that means self-selecting in and self-selecting out. And that transparency and openness will allow them to make a more informed decision, which is, the healthy outcome on both ends. And then the last thing is you really want to think about, once you've gotten to the offer stage, you've extended an offer, it's been accepted, really think about thoughtfully designing both the pre-boarding and the onboarding experience. Pre-boarding is that period from when they've accepted the offer to when they actually start. You have to make sure you're maintaining engagement, you're maintaining introductions, you're sending additional information to help them understand the business and the company. It would be great if you could factor in a bit of a buffer time from when they end their current role, if they're working, and when they start with you. As we mentioned in the first part of this video series, CPOs and heads of people have been through a lot the last couple of years, so that ability to have a bit of a break and refresh is great. I know you can't always do that, but if you can do that, that will go a long way in helping them hit the ground running. And then also in the onboarding process, they're going to want to see the org charts. They're going to want to see the financial budgets. They're going to want to see where you're allocating money in the strategic plan. The more you can be prepared for that and actually offer that up, as opposed to having them have to ask for the different things they may need, the more groundwork you're putting in place for them to be successful and ramp up in a quick time frame. So again, all really important components when you're thinking about designing an interview process specifically for heads of people, and hopefully through understanding these three foundations, understanding the current climate that you're hiring in, understanding the drivers and motivations of heads of people today. And this video on designing the actual interview process will help you hire a transformative heads of people that can bring your business forward. So this is the first series on a founder's HR playbook that we'll be rolling out from the Amplify Talent YouTube channel. Hope you found it helpful. If you did, feel free to share it. Feel free to click the subscribe and get alerts for future videos, and there'll be additional chapters coming very soon. Thanks for watching.